Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network. And joining me to talk Texans is Harley Dugan, host of the Lead Houston. And just like we do, he covers the Rockets and Astros along with the Texans. Great to have you, Harley. And correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we the only indie YouTubers who cover all the Houston pro teams? I don't know of anybody else that does this.
Yeah, I don't know anybody, at least off the top of my head, that covers all three collectively. So, I mean, it's a lot of work, man. It is. And I understand there's been a lot of people that have been wanting to do it. And the amount of workload I've tried to describe to them, they don't fathom until they actually start doing this. And so I'm excited. I'm happy that I could talk Astros and Rockets and Texans and at least be somewhat knowledgeable in all three aspects at the most, as much as I can. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And if people are just finding me through Harley in this show, just a reminder, this is my 12th year doing the podcast, over 1,500, maybe over 1,600 episodes. I haven't been keeping track recently, but over 300 guests. And we've been going weekly or bi-weekly. And it can be a grind, but Harley, I don't know how not to care about all three teams. I mean, I grew up a Houstonian, loving all these teams. It's like, well, how do you keep up with everything? How do you not, man? These are my teams.
Yeah, man, I'm the same way. It's kind of like my life, I mean, my dad was a huge sports fan, Houston sports fan. I mean, he grew up working at the Summit. He used to just sell hot dogs and stuff out of a little vendors that was far where people would go and grab hot dogs or whatever. And he couldn't sell beer because he wasn't of age. So then there'd be maybe 5 minutes left in the game. They'd have to close up everything. It'd be 5-4, 3 minutes left in the game. My dad would go over, watch the rest of the game. And he used to catch a lot of Rockets back in the day. So he basically made me bleed Houston sports as much as possible. And I love this. I love talking Texans, Astros, Rockets. My first memory is basically I would say my first sports memory that I can really, really remember, besides Texans, Cowboys, but like the first ever game, the first one I really remember was that Astros 2005 World Series run. That was like my first, I can remember the whole lineup. I can remember players. I can remember everything. It was a lot of fun for me as a kid. And obviously that didn't end up the way we wanted to, but that was a lot of fun. Houston sports has always been my thing.
Oh, wow. That's great. The Summit, that was perfect. Love the Summit, missed the Summit. I mean, such a great environment because everything was so close. The court just doesn't feel quite as close with the Toyota Center, despite all the great amenities and the big video board. So that's all great, but I do miss the Summit. And you and I, we're going to focus on Texas. I decided to focus on Texas because the draft just 10 days away now. Finally, it's getting close as we record. And do you have a particular position you'd like the Texans to draft in the first round? Is it tackle or guard or wide receiver? Is anyone you're leaning towards?
Definitely leaning towards offensive line, just in general. As we know, offensive line is currently constructed is not good. They can continue to add depth as much as they want, but the starting five or whoever it is as of right now, it ain't the greatest. Now, I appreciate them trying to circumvent around it and try to grab some guys, but, ultimately you did trade away Laramie Tunsil, and sure, the intangibles can be talked about all we want. At the end of the day, he's a top 5 pass blocking left tackle in the NFL. And how do you replace that talent? Now, you got to draft it in some sort of capacity at 25. I'm kind of indifferent on positions, on who, but it's just tough to not look at that red button to press and say, yeah, offensive line is the absolute need. And talking to everyone else, even some national media people, that's the growing conversation is what are the Texans going to do at offensive line with 25?
Now, that leads me to my next question. Is there a particular player that you're hoping for who's realistically, and I'm going to put an emphasis on realistically because I know fans sometimes aren't so realistic about it, that's realistically still on the board at 25 for the Texans?
I would go first with somewhat realistic because I got to let my Houston bias come out because I am a Houston Cougar fan and I do love me some Matthew Golden. I am just not quite sure he'll be there at 25. I feel like he might just go before 25, right at the 20s, maybe at the, but right before 20 even starts. There's a lot of hype around him. Love his route running, love how fluid he is. I loved him at the University of Houston. I knew he was going to transfer to UT. Obviously, when you look at the film and everything, I mean, he was the go-to guy going to the playoffs for them. But to be realistic with the Houston Texans and who they should be looking at offensive line, I think Tyler Booker is probably the answer there at 25. I had Jordan Reed on my YouTube channel. He spoke extremely high of Tyler Booker and talked about his film and really broke it down and saying that there's not much there when it comes to his deficiencies besides expanding the game a little bit by having him move. And if he's not, inside the bully in the phone booth, as he described it. But he said that he thinks he would be a great fit for the Houston Texans, considering that we have Nick Caley, might be more of a gap scheme, who entirely knows. But yeah, I'm going to lean with Tyler Booker. It just feels like he could be an option for the Texans at 25.
Do you see him in mocks going that late? Do you think he really can last that? Because that was a guy that I just thought they wouldn't have a shot at.
I see mocks and I'm like, man, I agree with you. But then when I was talking to Jordan Reed and even Joe DeLeon, who's a college football analyst, both of them said that they would pick Tyler Booker at 25, and they can realistically see him being there at 25. So I'm kind of mixed because I do agree that maybe he's not there at 25. It does make you go to other directions. Maybe Gray Zabel. They've seemed like they had a private meeting with him. Who knows? From North Dakota State. Now, I know he's not the cup of tea the Texans and Nick Caserio are usually drafting. They love their Power 5 guys and their blue chip talent guys. But I mean, he's somebody that they've met with already. You also have Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. So, yeah, there's other guards that are available, and I guess I am leaning towards guard at 25.
I want to get you on the big picture, because if the Texans keep all 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, that's going to lead to 4 positions that they can fill. What positions do you want them to address with those picks?
I guess, you automatically think of the team needs. To me, it's offensive line, wide receiver, and then defensive tackle, I would say. Those are the 3 immediately that stand out to me. Helpful for the Texans, the defensive line is a pretty deep position in this draft. So offensive line, wide receiver, defensive tackle, and then I would say the 4th one, I want a running back. Like, I am tired of not having a running back for this team. I know we have Joe Mixon, but I mean, I don't know what to really expect out of Damian Pearson. Yet another scheme for him. It didn't work out for him when Bobby Slowick got here. Last year, he's became the kick return guy. But, I mean, you can find a kick returner if you really wanted to. There's plenty in here in this draft. But running back class is so deep. The Houston Texans have to attack the running back in some sort of fashion. RJ Harvey, DJ Giddens, Damian Martinez, and those are guys that are Devin Neal. All of these guys are not even some of the top guys in this draft, and they're down there for you for the picking, So 4 picks inside the top 100. I think those are the 4 that I wouldn't mind. I would be happy with.
Yeah, I see potentially the running back draft is so deep. Maybe the 5th round pick is where they can address running back.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they don't. Do they have a 5th round pick? I don't think they.
No, they don't have a 4th, but they do have a 5th, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, when you're looking at 5th, yeah, some of them guys like Trevor Etienne out of Georgia is not a bad option. Very, very good receiving back. Kind of reminds me of James White, which makes a lot of sense for Nick Caley. Nick Caley had James White with the New England Patriots. James White had over 60 catches as a running back during his time there in one of his seasons. So I could see a Trevor Etienne, maybe even RJ Harvey, DJ Giddens. Some of them guys I mentioned do fit into that day 3 pick.
Let's go back to the offensive line for a second. Do you trust Caserio's O-line evaluation, or do you believe Caley and Popovich will play an underrated role in this process of picking the right offensive lineman in the draft?
Fan perspective, like I want this answer to be Nick Caley and Cole Popovich, because even if you draft, let's say you double dip at offensive line, that's pretty much, that could be a chance they do too. Given 4 picks in the top 100, they could double dip. but you got to figure out how to circumvent this offensive line with the deficiencies. Because, I mean, we know the offensive line is currently constructed. It ain't great on paper. It's okay, maybe even worse than okay. I would say it's slightly below average. But with two rookies, that's a lot of pressure on them to come in and hopefully bring you some starts, and one of them hopefully being a day one starter for you. That's a lot of pressure on them, so that's where I hope Cole Popovich and Nick Caley, a new OC and a new offensive lines coach, can bring something, and at some point defensive coordinators are so good that they're going to figure out the deficiencies on your offensive line. You just got to hope that Nick Caley is this wizard and he figures it out. I look at Caserio and I'm like, Kenyon Green, first round pick, 15th. You had Austin Deculus go in the 6th round. That was 2022. 2023, Juice Scruggs, Jarrett Patterson. 2024, Blake Fisher, Ladarius Henderson. I mean, none of them guys go, oh man, I'm comfortable with one of them guys. Kenyon Green's no longer on the roster. Deculus been in and out of the roster. Scruggs is kind of a toss-up. I don't even know what to really think of Scruggs. Jarrett Patterson's been the most successful out of this bunch, maybe. Besides,
hey, if you get a guy you can trust in the 6th round to start at center, that's pretty good, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's there, and then Blake Fisher was okay at right tackle, but and then Ladarius Henderson, I don't even know what to expect out of a Ladarius Henderson.
Yeah, late round picks. I mean, once you get past the 4th round, it's really a crapshoot. The real one that's the struggle is Kenyon Green, and you wonder how much injuries have played a factor in his career. You wonder how much, the changing offensive line helped or hindered his development. So, that's a question mark. I think Juice Scruggs can still be something at center. I really feel like he's not going to excel at guard. He was going to be a center. But the problem was, and I tell you, to be honest with you, Harley, the problem to me was they put too much on his plate as a signal caller and not enough on CJ Stroud. And I think that's one of the things that's going to change with Nick Caley is they're going to put a little bit more on CJ Stroud as far as, sort of the play calling of the offensive line, the coverage, what the blocking schemes are and everything. Like, I think that's going to help him a ton. And maybe, we'll see what Juice Scruggs was supposed to be when they drafted him.
Yeah, I agree with you because, I mean, you mentioned Bobby Slowick and that whole Shanahan-Kubiak offense. Like, the center is the backbone of their offense almost. He's the one that's calling out the mics and calling out protection sets. That is a lot of pressure for a rookie in Juice Scruggs. And then even last year going into his 2nd year off injury, now being that pressure is going to be weighed more towards CJ Stroud, which I feel like we're all pretty confident that CJ Stroud can handle that pressure. He seems like a very intelligent guy when it comes to football. We've seen many clips of him breaking down plays and film and stuff that gotten, viral, and we've seen it. So I'm more confident that CJ can do that. Whereas the center now, hey, you can play a little bit more free. Okay. To your point, Nick Caserio mentioned Juice Scruggs being better at seeing him more as a center than he did as a guard. That's when Scruggs was playing guard. Now we know Caserio, I mean, his opinion has some weight to it, obviously. D'Amico is going to be constructing the depth chart however he sees fit, but I think it's very interesting to hear that your GM who traded up and drafted Juice Scruggs sees him more as a center than he is a guard.
All right, we're going to get to this starting offensive line as it stands today in just a second. But before we roll on, quick reminder, I want to hear you guys Texans takes. What do you think they should do in the draft? Let us know in the YouTube comments. You can support us and get updates on every show that drops by subscribing on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up and listen in the car or while you're out and about with your favorite podcast app. All right, Harley, the $1 million question. Even though this could change in 10 days, literally, who is your starting offensive line as we sit here right now?
As of right now, I would say left tackle's Cam Robinson. Your left guard is Tyus Howard. Your center, I'm going to go with Juice Scruggs. Your right guard, I would go with the veteran. I feel like they're going to put some more with the veteran and Lincoln Tomlinson. And then your right tackle, Blake Fisher. I think those are your 5. If you had to start tomorrow, those are your starting 5 right there.
My feeling is I want Titus at right tackle. I just don't feel like I saw enough out of Blake Fisher. And that leads me to my next question. What did you think of Blake Fisher's last few starts at right tackle? And do you feel like right tackle is his future permanent position?
I can understand your sentiment there. I kind of just went with what is the best five for the Houston Texans there, and I think that is constructed as their best five. Titus, I'm more in line with look, whatever their offensive line position was, that's what it's supposed to be. Like I'm not into shuffling the chairs around the deck, and seeing if he could play guard or tackle. I know if he played tackle, like Kelvin Banks, I Bleav is a left tackle or right tackle. I don't think he's more of a guard. I think he is a tackle. He's had only 2 sacks in 2 seasons with University of Texas. So that's where I look at when I go to the offensive line. I would prefer Titus at right tackle. I think he plays okay there, solid enough. Plus, you paid him all that money to be a tackle, too. Blake Fisher, during his time, I thought he was okay. I feel like maybe he was just okay because the rest of the offensive line was so bad that maybe I just didn't pay enough attention to Blake Fisher because the interior was horrible for the Texans. But, I mean, he had 337 snaps, 4 sacks, 1 penalty. That's just in 5 games. If you multiply that just by 3, which would be 15 games, you're looking at 12 sacks. You're looking at 3 penalties. It's not the greatest kind of numbers you want out of a rookie right tackle. But then the emphasis there is that he was a rookie. He's being just thrown into the fire there. Understand, though, you're a second-round pick. We're expecting results. Unfortunately, there's no excuse. I do see that he can be a right tackle, and I'm sure the Texans hope that he is their future right tackle. I know he was left tackle before Joe Alt got there. Notre Dame went over to right tackle. I think Blake Fisher still has some potential and some growth there. We'll see whether or not that manufactures into this year.
My thing on Titus Howard is he's looked great at left tackle when he got a chance a few years ago to play that position. I've thrown out his numbers before on that, but they were excellent. His right tackle numbers are, I don't know what the complaint is, because if you look at Pro Football Focus, I know a lot of people just say, there's the critics of Pro Football Focus. And I always say this, go look at the numbers that they put up. They typically match what you're seeing with your eyes. And what I saw with my eyes with Titus was really good. And it was oftentimes not fair to the guy that he's been moved around a ton. It wasn't fair to him that he's been put with some sort of garbage guys around him. You look sometimes as good as the guys around you. So that's not fair. And, you said it. The biggest point to me is you're paying this guy tackle money. I don't want him at guard. I want him at tackle. Like Blake Fisher, if he's struggling like he did at the end of last year, that's something like let him do a little bit more of that struggling at guard. Maybe you could stick him at guard, but I just don't see Titus being at guard. And I think what this is all going to come down to is, you said it earlier, they're going to draft a guard, and that's going to be the starting left guard. I don't think it's going to be Titus Howard. But yeah, I kind of put you on the spot as who your stars would be now. But let's be fair. It's probably going to be the guy that they draft. I see the rookie, unless he just comes in and looks completely lost. It's a 2nd round pick, and he just doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. So, but yeah, I want to see Titus. I'm tired of him moving all around. I think he's a really good tackle, and really good tackles are hard to find. And I want that guy protecting the outside on CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. When I look at he had his Twitter bio when he had Twitter before he deleted it. His Twitter bio said right tackle for the Houston Texans. And he had that in all caps in his Twitter bio. That was just about a year or 2 ago. So, I would prefer him at tackle and left tackle. He had, it's a small sample size, but he had some good numbers there at left tackle, and you didn't really miss a beat whenever he played there at all. So I wouldn't mind either or for him, either of the tackle positions. At the end of the day, the Texans are going to be drafting somebody at the offensive line. In conclusion, they just need youth and talent on the offensive line desperately. So that 25, two of the top 4 there that they have inside the top 100. Like, they got to find offensive linemen very desperately.
Yeah, and I think it was real interesting to hear from KOC up in Minnesota talking about Cam Robinson and him saying like what this guy had to do for us, and then come in the middle of the season and play a different scheme. He was doing different stuff than he was doing in Jacksonville, and he had high praise for him. And it felt like he went out of his way to really praise Cam Robinson. And I had a guy that covers the Vikings. You can go check my archives when they made that signing with Cam Robinson. He just, he had some really good stuff to say about what Cam Robinson did up there, considering the circumstances and where they were. And, Cam Robinson was a pretty good guy in Jacksonville. The really only complaint is sort of similar to Laramie Tunsil, is that he's not the best run blocker, but as a pass blocker, there's not a lot of complaints with Cam, really.
Yeah, and I think that's why I have him slated, besides giving him a pretty solid contract too. It's kind of why I have him slated there at left tackle. Yeah, there's not many complaints when you look at it when it comes to him. I thought it was very interesting, the Texans going after some Vikings guys, looking at Kevin O'Connell with Cam Robinson, and you traded for Ed Ingram, who I know will be in competition there. And so who knows if that even manufactures into anything with Ed Ingram. I would prefer the rookie that you draft in 10 days to start over an Ed Ingram, unless Ed just comes in and just fits like a book. Then, hey, man, I don't care about being wrong. I just want the right guys to be playing at the end of the day.
All right, let's move to Jalen Pitre. What did you think of Pitre's new contract? 3 years, $39 million. That sounds fair, but $29 million guaranteed for Jalen Pitre. What do you think?
Hey, I'm always happy for a player to get his money. Jalen Pitre, very happy for. I mean, he did a hell of a job at Baylor, and, he's been thrusted into the same role last year that he did at Baylor that made him the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And it's that star role, whatever you want to call it, nickel linebacker hybrid that Jalen Pitre is. I don't necessarily mind it too much. I think there's a lot of intangibles that we don't talk about when it comes to Jalen Pitre that I'm sure D'Amico values, and it's probably the same value he has when they gave Jimmy Ward an extension. Jalen Pitre getting that extension doesn't shock me. I think we kind of all expected it. Dollar amount, okay. I could see the argument that, maybe they should have waited another year to see, with him getting injured last year, and can he produce the same way again? But overall, I'm not too displeased about it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is Jalen Pitre plays really physical football, even for, somebody on defense. And he's not a big guy. He did get hurt last year. And it's not a big deal to give him the 3-year extension. It was just the guaranteed money I thought was a little bit curious. And, I didn't know if there was a concern that Jalen was going to walk if they didn't give him more than 3 years or a certain amount. And I find it interesting because, typically the NFL doesn't like giving guaranteed contracts to anybody. We're starting to see a little bit more with quarterbacks in that position, obviously with Josh Allen, and we've seen it with Kirk Cousins. But like, that was the one thing that I really question is, like, did we have to give him that much money guaranteed for Jalen Pitre? Because this isn't a contract that starts this coming year. This starts the following year. So you're sort of depending on Jalen Pitre to be healthy for the next 4 years. That's a lot.
It is. I understand the cause of concern. I do. This is a tough one. It's just a roll of the dice, and that kind of simplifies what Nick Caserio has been like when D'Amico's got here. It's been a roll of a dice sometimes as a GM. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and get CJ Stroud, and not only do that, but trade up and trade some significant draft capital to go get Will Anderson, and you're going to bank on those two guys as the future cornerstones for the defense and offense. And you're selling to the fans after what's been a very tough 2 years of trying to watch Texans football, that, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to do things. And hopefully it works. And thankfully it's looking okay so far. It's looking pretty good. It's looking bright, I would say. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily shock me that the risk is being thrown out here with Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, I also point out that Jalen's not somebody that could fit in every single team. The Texans
True.
made his position work. He's got deficiencies as a safety, obviously too small to be a linebacker for most teams. So he's playing this sort of hybrid position that's worked real well. So that's a big part of it. Last thing I had for you, outside of CJ Stroud, which Texans player will benefit the most thanks to the new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley?
There was quite a few to choose from when I was thinking of it. Because I was like, immediately, I'm like, I wonder how Christian Kirk does in this scheme, considering he's going to be used heavily in the slot. We saw what a lot of the slot guys did for the LA Rams with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, especially this previous year when we saw Nick Caley take over as the pass game coordinator over Zach Robinson. So I kind of wanted to say Christian Kirk, but I can't get over D'Amico Ryans talking very highly of Brevin Jordan. That highlights the specific positional coach that Nick Caley was. Brevin Jordan's interesting. I understand that there's a lot of concern with his injury, and that's entirely right. He has to be healthy in order for this to work for him in his career. But there is a lot of just really good athleticism from Brevin Jordan. There's a lot of stuff that you see from the rest of the league with tight ends that Brevin Jordan possesses talents that others don't. We saw some glimpses of it. We saw a little bit of it with the Browns with the long touchdown pass to him that he just took to the house and outran everybody. The first Colts game, which arguably is the best game of the offensive line last year, is the very first week against the Colts. Brevin Jordan played very well during his time there and played through an injury as well. Injuries are the biggest factor there for him. But D'Amico Ryans talking highly, praising Brevin Jordan, spoke a little bit about Cade Stover, and then had this one sentence, two sentence answer on Dalton Schultz. Kind of makes me wonder how Nick Caley views Brevin Jordan, how they can utilize him and see what he can do in this offense as well.
Thing is, I thought Brevin Jordan was going to be a really good player this year with Bobby. And I didn't feel like Bobby held him back because he started to break out the previous season. I felt like that was the most underrated story of somebody that the Texans badly missed this year because of injuries. Everybody talked about Christian Harris, but Brevin Jordan to me was such a big deal because he was the best blocker of the tight ends and he had started to break out the year before. So I sort of discounted him when I'm thinking of the guy that's going to break out. I thought about Dameon Pierce, but I think they're going to bring in another running back, and Dameon Pierce might have to fight for his job. So I'm going with somebody that's a little bit more obvious, and unless for some reason they decide that they're going to move on from Dalton Schultz. And I think if you move on from Schultz, it seems like you're going to be paying his salary anyway. So I don't know if it's worth moving on from Dalton Schultz because he still can catch passes. But I think Dalton Schultz is going to benefit because guess what? He's not going to have to block as much because smarter offensive coordinators wouldn't have Dalton Schultz blocking all the time and playing in the interior. They'd move him outside. They'd say, this guy can't block. Let's move him outside and take advantage of what he does do well instead of bringing in another defender, which is what the Texans continue to do under Bobby Sloak. So if I'm picking somebody that can really help from all this, would be Dalton Schultz. And perhaps, he'll catch a couple more passes. He'd add more drops than we've seen him typically. But really, I mean, a lot of these guys can benefit. I'm hoping CJ Stroud actually is the guy that benefits the most from the Nick Caley offense.
Yeah, I agree there with you about CJ Stroud. I really do. I'm hoping that, just like CJ, like Dalton Schultz, I hope we get to see some of that rookie year, first year of Dalton Schultz that we had compared with CJ Stroud. They had a really good connection brewing, specifically the Atlanta Falcons game. He just goes up to Dalton Schultz and says, hey, you're just going to run a little zigzag route, and I'm going to hit you for a touchdown to get this game and try to win this game right now. And Schultz is like, yeah, no problem, bud. Boom, bam, touchdown. Obviously, the defense didn't hold up in that Falcons game last year, but there was a connection last year that we saw between CJ and Dalton Schultz that we didn't see this previous year. The blocking woes were very an eyesore to all of us Houston sports fans, as well as just blocking in general was pretty bad. But Dalton Schultz, yeah, I can see why he's the answer. Tight end coach Nick Caley, I mean, his simple answer was, I like tight ends, and then repeated the sentence, I like tight ends. So hopefully he can bring Dalton Schultz back into that year, and then obviously get CJ Stroud back to cooking.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz, I felt like fans were a little bit rough with him. I understood some of the criticism, but I also felt like, you got to use a guy right sometimes. And, here's a guy that's not big. He's getting beat up inside. So he's taking a physical pounding that I thought was unnecessary. And if you'd got him outside more, you could see what he does do well for you instead of what he doesn't do well. And I just thought it was a missed thing. It's also bad luck because Brevin Jordan would have been the more blocking tight end, and Schultz wouldn't have had to do some of that stuff. I think if Brevin was healthy, it didn't help that Stover's brought in as a guy that had barely played tight end in college, was not a good blocker himself. He struggled there. So all of that accentuated Schultz's issues. But yeah, I didn't think it was all that fair. One of the things that I'm hoping that will be figured out quickly by Nick Caley is that Ogunbowale is not a good third down guy because he can't block. He can't block. And I don't understand why he's a third down back if he's not good at blocking for the quarterback as a guy that's supposed to do that on third down a lot of the time.
They have this belief that he is a exceptional pass protecting blocker for third down specifically. I don't know, man. I feel like Dare Ogunbowale is a dime a dozen. Like, I can find somebody like him in the 6th or 7th round. I can find somebody like him undrafted, let's be honest.
Yes.
Besides, like, oh my God, he can kick a few field goals if you're in a pinch. The rarity for a kicker to get hurt in the NFL is extremely high. Like, that's not a reason why he should be on the team. Sure, he brings some special teams value, but considering all the other guys you've brought in for special teams and the faith I have in Frank Ross as a special teams coordinator, Dare doesn't do anything for me on this football team. Dameon Pierce is definitely going to be fighting for a spot, considering the Texans, when you look at all of the positions they looked at 8 running backs so far with all the meets and visits and stuff. So that just tells you maybe there is an indication that, well, it should be an indication that the Texans do get themselves a running back in this draft. It's a deep draft class. Go get you a running back. I am pleading with them. We saw the 49ers last year. They went and grabbed Isaac Guerendo from Louisville, which coincidentally the running mate for Jordan, who we never even saw on the football field. But Isaac Guerendo ended up, they already had Christian McCaffrey, but they went ahead and grabbed an Isaac Guerendo who actually had starter snaps for them when McCaffrey went down, as well as their backup. We saw the Dolphins, and they went and grabbed themselves another running back in the draft. Even though they grabbed Devon Achane, they didn't care. We're going to grab ourselves another running back. Like, that's what you do. This is what you're supposed to do. Get yourself a running back. I've been pounding on the table for many years. Go get a running back, Texans. Please don't be scared to draft one.
Yeah, they got Pierce in the 4th. They got Jawar in the 5th. So, and that's about where the running backs are drafted typically these days. So, and this is a deep draft. So, like I said, I really see it like even the 3rd or 5th round. I can definitely feel the potential of running. I would say more the 5th round. I just feel like the needs and where running backs lie in the priority list aren't as high as the other ones. But hey, good stuff. He's at the lead_HOU, and remind us where they can find you on the socials, Harley, and anything else you want to plug.
The same exact handle, at the lead_HOU, anywhere on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I've been trying to post a lot more on Instagram and TikTok. So those platforms are growing. It's super appreciative for every single one of y'all that has got me to where I am. You can especially find me on YouTube, same handle, at the lead_HOU. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers. We just passed 13K just a few days ago. So I'm super happy about it. I've been doing this for 4 years, I think now. And so almost a 15K. I'm very, very proud and wouldn't be here without every single one of y'all watching, liking, subscribing, doing y'all's thing. So again, Robert, I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
Sounds fantastic. Again, a week from Thursday, we're going to be talking about the first Texans draft pick. Can't wait to do that. Thanks for doing this, Harley. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.